The year of 2018, the world was undergoing tremendous change, and the economic situation was complex. But under the leadership of the CPC and President Xi Jinping, we have made progress also. And with the spirit of Xi Jinping thought in new era, we will focus on efficiency and to promote economic development in a sound way. We have also witnessed a steadfast growth and also improvement in the macro adjustment. Firstly, we strived to lower the tax and maintained the system. Also maintained the economic growth within the proper range. And secondly, we step up with the fighting for the three critical battles and improved the livelihood of the society. And thirdly, we supported the supply-side structural reform and implemented the plan, and also promoted an integrated plan of urban and rural areas, and increased the quality of the development. And fourth, we deepened the legal financing and improved the supervision mechanism for the financing. Hereby, I would like to stress the tax reduction in the year of 2018. Firstly, we deepened the value-added tax reduction. We reduced the tax for some industries. And we also completed the mechanism for some small-scale tax. For the small-scale taxpayers, there are two types. We increased the 500,000 to 5 million yuan. And for some industries, we also offered favorable policies. Secondly, we implemented the procedure reform, and we established the comprehensive mechanism for the personal tax. And the basic line is 5,000 yuan. Thirdly, we also launched a series of policies to support the small and medium-sized enterprises. Previously, we talked about this, and this is mainly a reciprocal, favorable policy for the SMEs. And we reduced their tax in halfway. And we also lowered the limit for their tax payment and increased it from the 500,000 to 1 million yuan. And also offered other favorable policies to increase the limit for the medium-sized enterprises to 10 million yuan. And fourth, we also support the technological and scientific innovation. We increased this to 75%. And for the scientific and technological companies, we support them. We will also support other companies. And for the angel investment fund and other investment fund, we will broaden the aspects, because in the past they only support or invest in some high-end technologies. And we also transform the loss transition period from 5 years to 10 years. And for twice, we lowered the tariff for the import and the anti-cancer drugs. We offer zero tax policies. And for the anti-cancer drugs, we only adopted the 3% tax policies. and the tax rate are all reduced. And the sixth, we also clear the administerial tax payment and the service tax payment. So generally speaking, the tax reduction has achieved concrete progress and made effective roles. In the whole year, the volume reached 1.3 trillion. Currently, our economy witnessed steadfast growth, but we also encounter challenges and problems. In the Central Economic Working Conference, the plan is that in the year of 2019, positive financing policy will firstly guarantee the steadfast growth of the economy and also maintain the supply-side structural reform. And we will also continue the central spirit and the central policy and to use the advantages of the financial reform and adjustment. And we will reduce the pressure and achieve efficiency. We will increase tax reduction and increase support. Firstly, we will further reduce tax. On one hand, we will broaden the scale for the tax reduction and improve efficiency, mainly for the SMEs and manufacturing industries, so that to support real economic development. On the other hand, we will further promote the reduction from the region levels. And we will increase the supervision and investigation on social aspects. According to the economic situation and various demands, we will broaden and increase the financial supports to regional governments. And we will support the major projects under construction and make up for their shortages. By saying increasing the efficiency, we mean we will increase the efficiency for the finance and also for the distribution of the assets. And we will focus on some key areas and further adjust and prioritize the structure of this financing. Firstly, we will guarantee the key projects, and we will also increase financing in the poverty alleviation through rural issues, livelihood improvement, etc. And for the areas where needs less finance, we will continue reducing the consumption and to make the expenditure within the proper range, to reduce them by 5%, and to cancel those non-efficient financing investment. And we will make this performance system all over the whole project. We will continue make the finance effective so that to integrate the whole procedure in a sound way. And that's what I want to say. Thank you. And now let's invite...
that was the press conference issued by...
And we should increase the MLF operation and increase the mid and long-term supply of the fluidity, and also increase our guide on the monetary fund and also the social financing side. Second, in the structural way, we should increase the directional regulation and be more precise in our support. And third, we should adopt multiple measures to deblock the monetary policy. And we should readjust the MPA and increase the space for the debt increase in the financial institutions and increase the investigations to support the earmarked indicators for the public and private sectors, especially the small and micro-sized enterprises. And we have set up the TMLF, and it will offer a better interest rate than the MLF. And we will also publish a support tool for the private enterprises in terms of the bond financing, and also give them more support to offer better financial services to the small and micro-sized enterprises and the private enterprises. According to the data of January and last December, there's an increase of 70% compared to the last year, and this has increased our confidence. In talking about the financial services to the private sectors and small and micro-sized enterprises, we should use the perpetual bond as an important outbreak for the supplementary capital for the banks. And the fourth measure is to continue to use the interest rate and the reform on the marketized interest market. We should set up the reference interest system in the market and to improve the market-based level of the pricing for the interest rate. In general, for 2018, we have yielded good results for all kinds of policies. We have consolidated our support to the real economy by the finance. Here are some figures. In 2018, the newly added RMB debt is up to 16.17 trillion yuan, an increase of 2.64 trillion yuan compared to the same period of last year, and the newly added amount is 3 times higher than the last year's volume. And by the end, the remaining debt has registered a year-on-year increase of 13.5%. That's 0.8% percentage point higher than the end of the previous year. And for the first 11 months of last year, we have also increased the small diameter loans by 17.1%, and the credit given to the small and micro-sized enterprises has registered an increase of 28%. The interest rate of all kinds have registered a steady progress. And by the end of last year, the 10-year national bond interest rate is 3.25%, a decrease of 0.64 percentage points. For the 2 last months of 2018, an increase of 70% in the issue of bonds by the private enterprises, and we have taken into control the financial risks. For the People's Bank of China, we will continue to apply the layout of the Central Committee of the CPC and also the decision of the State Council. And we have also organized a national work conference to give the guideline of the next year's work. In general, we have strengthened our policy making to make it more flexible and more precise, more targeted. And also we have made sure that there is enough fluidity, and also there's enough reasonable increase with the monetary supply and also the social finance. That is the end of my introduction. And thank you, Mr. Zhu. And now we'd like to take the questions. Please identify yourself before asking the question. Thank you. I'm from CCTV. We have noticed that recently the NDRC has invested in several programs to catch up with them lagging behind. And this year, what are the highlights of the investment, and what are the specified measures to be taken? Thank you for your question. People are paying attention to investment for the Central Economic Work Conference, it is said that we should bring into full play the role of investment. And to make full use of the investment, it means that we should play the role of the government, especially for the regulation, especially for the construction and renovation. For construction side, there are 5 aspects. The first is the construction of new type of infrastructure. We should advance the AI, industrial network, and the 5G commercialization. Secondly, the urban and rural infrastructure, the civil engineering, logistics, and also the poverty alleviation and countryside infrastructure. The third is for energy, transport, waterworks, and the other major construction projects. And fourth, to strengthen the improvement of people's livelihood and social services, especially to catch up with education, medical care, insurance. Fifth is to strengthen our capability to protect the environment and prevent the natural catastrophes. For the renovation of the manufacturing sector. As to the policy measures, we should improve the environment of investment, promote the progress of the projects, and guarantee enough financial resources. First of all, talking about the investment environment, we should improve the environment and shorten the waiting time for the enterprises to get the loans. And for the approval time for the construction projects, we should shorten that by 50%. And we should ease the market access. This year in China, we should apply fully the negative list for the market access so that all subjects of the market could enter the areas inside or outside the list. And on the basis of the pilot cities, in small and medium-sized cities of China and also in the pilot zones, we should start evaluation of the business environment. Second, we should do more efforts in promoting the projects. For the first quarter, we can already apply most of the central budget so that we can accelerate the progressing of the projects. For those large-size projects already included in the plan, we should set up the supply chain and also improve the quantity and the quality of the storage of the projects. And we should elaborate the short-term, mid-term, and long-term plans and make a stockage of the projects. And third, we should give better guarantee of the financial resources, especially the earmarked bonds of local governments to support those key catch-up programs and also the ongoing programs. On the basis of the current efforts, we should make more innovations and place the operation based on the market rules, strengthen regulation, and mobilize the social capitals and civil capitals to improve the efficiency of financial resources utilization. We have also noticed that in the media, they're paying attention to the approval speed by the central government and the relevant authorities. Here, I should draw your attention that while accelerating the approval procedure, we are deepening the financing system. For the local authorities, they can have fewer power in approving some projects. We should make more targeted and more efficient investment. We cannot do the immersive investment. Make our investment more focused on the key projects. when selecting the projects, we should give more attention and support to those included projects. And we should let play the role of the market to decide which projects to take. We should catch up with the lagging behind part and also to make more regulation. The second question, please. Thank you. According to the Central Economic Work Conference, we should do more deduction of taxes and fees. Could you please give us more explanations? So I will give an answer to your question. Talking about the reduction of taxes and fees, they belong to the category of a proactive financial policy. It's also a way to realize the supply-side structural reform. According to Comrade Xi Jinping during the conference, we should have a larger size of the reduction of fees and taxes. According to the central government's layout, the Ministry of Finance will apply the published measures for the reduction in taxes and fees, and we will try our best to elaborate new measures to reduce more taxes and fees and support more the development of the real economy. Just now, I have talked about the taxes and fees reduction for 2018. And for the coming year, it will be similar to the previous year, and based on last year's performance, we will make further progress. That means more reduction on fees and taxes. There will be 4 aspects. First, for small and micro enterprises, there will be a universally beneficial deduction of fees and taxes. After the Standing Committee meeting in January the 9th, we have made several decisions. Here are some interpretations for that. First, we will increase the threshold for small taxpayers of the VAT from a threshold of 30,000 yuan of monthly sales to 100,000. That means for the enterprises with a turnover of less than 100,000 yuan per month, they do not need to pay for their monthly VAT. Second, we are loosening the control on the taxes for the small and micro-sized enterprises. It means that we should loosen the limiting conditions for the size of the capital under 50 million yuan and the number of employees under 300, and also the taxable income under 3 million yuan. Compared to the previous criteria, the threshold has been significantly raised up. This will be a very good news for the small and micro-sized enterprises. And we have also calculated for those enterprises identified as the small and micro-sized enterprises, they will have a total number of 17.98 million. According to this criteria, 95% of the enterprises could be considered as a small and micro-sized enterprises so that they can enjoy all those above-mentioned beneficiary measures. Among those, 95% of small and medium-sized and small and micro-sized enterprises, 98% of them are private enterprises. That is for the identification For the tax benefits, they can enjoy different beneficiary tax rebate ratio. It's 20% lower than the standard tax rate. For those who have a taxable income of 1 million to 3 million, then the tax rate is 10%. And the third measure to benefit the small and micro-sized enterprises. For the small-sized taxpayers, their contribution to the local tax, there could be a deduction or even an exemption. We allow the local governments to follow a legal process to give a 50% cut on the income taxes for the enterprises. For example, the tax for additional education, tax for utilization of the local land, etc. After the deduction of the local taxes, for this part lacking in the local government's financial incomes, there will be an add-up coming directly from the central budget. The fourth measure, to expand the preferential policies to the scientific and technological startups, and also for the venture capitals and scientific startups. They could enjoy 7% of deduction of taxes and fees. That means if you have invested in the scientific startups or the venture capital, you could enjoy 70% of deduction from your taxable income. For the scientific startups, what are the criteria for the identification? We have loosened the criteria. That means more enterprises could be included in. The turnover in the past, it's less than 30 million yuan of yearly turnover. Now it's up to 50 million yearly turnover. So we have loosened up the conditions to be identified as a scientific and technological startup. Another financial preferential policy to the small and micro-sized enterprises. And the second big measure is the VAT reform and give more tangible benefits to the people. Third, we should give a full application of the policies for the individual income deduction and apply 6 measures of the earmarked project. Starting by the 1st of January, we will start to apply all those 6 measures to ease the burden of the residents in terms of the income taxes. Fifth, we should work with the authorities to reduce people's contribution to the Social Security project, and also to ease the burden of the enterprises to pay a contribution to cover their employees' social security projects. Those are the 4 major aspects of our tax and fees reduction measures. We believe that all those measures would contribute to make our real economy more advanced and more healthy. The next question, please. Do we have a question coming from the foreign journalist? Thank you. I have a question for Mr. Zhu. According to the Central Economic Work Conference, we say that we should have a moderate fluidity and also a steady monetary policy. Steadiness is the guideline of our work. And we should make steady progress in our work. For the monetary policy, we should keep it steady. Steady doesn't mean that no change at all. For the monetary regulation, it should be adapted to the steady growth of the economy and also the steady price in the market. It's always in a match, so it should be moderately loose and moderately easy one. So it should not be too tight or too loose. It should always be adapted to the demands of the economy, and we should also optimize that policy and also start a counter-cyclical monetary policy. Actually, in 2018, starting by the beginning of 2018, adapted to the real terms of the economic development, we have adopted some counter-cyclical measures, and that is the major tone of our work, easy monetary policy. And we should also make a moderate reform of the structure. Enough support is necessary in the financial side, and we should make sure that our monetary policy is always in match with the real economic development and also with the growth of the GDP. We should pay attention to the structural improvements. Especially, we should make sure that our measures taken are well targeted, especially the targeted regulation. You have paid attention to the key targets and the key areas receiving our support. For example, our support to the private sector, our support to agriculture, our support to the poverty alleviation, and our support to the transformation of the sector, etc. I have also mentioned the structural reform back to 2018 and also the reforms. An investment of 16 trillion yuan, it goes into the economy and helps to boost the economy and also ease that lackage of financial resources in the market. And there is a question, how could we use all those measures to improve the efficiency of our work? We should make more trials. Today, by this press conference of the SCIO, it shows the synergy between the three authorities, the NDRC, the Ministry of Finance, and also the People's Bank of China, and also shows how our three departments could contribute to the growth of the real economy. We hope that we could solve the last kilometer problem with the transmission of the policies, and how we could bring into full play the role of the financial institutions and better serve those enterprises, especially the small and micro-sized enterprises. How could we build up the incentive, the positive incentive mechanisms to support them and to mobilize their forces? And how could we connect all the links and to solve all the problems blocking the transmission of the policies and measures? We should make sure we have enough liquidity in the market and also to solve the cost of the financing. Because today for the small and micro-sized enterprises, they have problems and difficulties in financing. That is mainly due to the high cost of financing, and we should do something to help them to get cheaper financing resources. We need capital reform and also the capital risk constraints are also necessary. And during this procedure, we should also apply the intelligence of the People's Bank of China, especially in giving more supplementary capital resources. And the next thing is about the prevention and control of the risks. Currently in China, we have also applied some financial layouts to avoid more risks. For the financial side, we have also received the support. And also for the financial institutions, they have received the requirements from the Central Committee about their competition conditions. As long as we work side by side, then the financial policy and the monetary policy could be always in a match with the financial regulation, and we could make sure that each financial authorities could make a full-fledged application of their roles. And I believe that the future would be brighter for us, and we can have a better application of the financial and monetary policies. Thank you. Next question, please. Thank you. I'm from Reuters. I have two questions. One is that we are still facing an increasing downside pressure for economy. For employment, do we have some pressure on that? And next, there are some monetary policies to support economic growth. Do we have pressure on the depreciation of the RMB? Tomorrow there will be another press conference. And the Ministry of Human Resources and Social Security can give you more information about that. For 2018, China has registered a steady progress in its economic growth. And of course, we are facing a downside economic pressure. In front of that pressure, for the Party Central Committee, they are attached to the employment issue, and it's on top of the 6 issues. We have newly added 13 million new jobs for the previous year. For 2019, when doing the layout for the economic development, we have still put the focus on the steady creation of job opportunities. Just now, Mr. Xu had talked about the reduction of the taxes and fees, and Mr. Zhu has mentioned that they will use the financial measures to supply the real economy development. Especially, we should give more support to the startups, to the small and micro-sized enterprises, and also the private sector. With the financial innovations, we should encourage those small and micro-sized enterprises and also the startups to give more opportunities to the people so that we can give a reaction to the downside economic development pressure. We have taken all these measures to support the real economy. If we can have a sound development of the real economy, then we can have more possibility to create more jobs, and it can also help to stabilize the interest rates. And we have this a flexible interest rate. It's also based on the supply and demand relations in the market. For the foreign exchange reserve, for the interest rate, we have the confidence to maintain it at a steady level. Tomorrow morning, there will be another round of press conference. And for our journalists from the Reuters, you are welcome to participate in tomorrow morning session. Next question, please. I'm from China Daily. Just now you have mentioned that you will continue to take proactive financial measures and also to increase the issue of the local government's bond. Does it mean that we are loosening the control on the local governments? Thank you for your question. Thank you for that question. According to the decision of the Central Economic Work Conference, this year, for the financial policy, we should increase the issue by the local governments of the earmarked bond to catch up with the progress and also to bring into full play the role of those bonds in stabilizing the local economy. And for this work, we have made steady progress. Currently, we have done several things. First of all, we have increased the size of the bond issuing by the local government in 2018, approved by the Standing Committee of the NPC. The newly added earmarked debt ceiling of the local government is 1.35 trillion yuan. For 2019, we should relatively increase the local government debt. The figures will be approved by the NPC, and later it will be published. And second, we should make more progress in the issue and utilization of the local government bond. I don't know whether you have noticed that the Standing Committee of the NPC has allowed the State Council to publish in advance the newly added local government debt ceiling in advance. This represents 63% of last year's level. And all these figures have already been given by us to the local governments, and the local governments will also go through the legislative procedure, and they will first need to get the approval of the local People's Congress, and starting soon they are about to issue the new local government bond. Based on the level of last year, this year we have accelerated the issue date of the local government bond. The Ministry of Finance, based on that, will also give a timely report to the local government about the approved figure of the local government debt. And we will make sure that most of these loans could be issued by the end of September. Thirdly, because today we are supporting steady consumption for the earmarked debt of the local government, it should be used for the support of infrastructure. And we have also launched the special projects for the issue of the bond. And also we will use the bond to solve the unsettled payment of the local construction projects. And for the waterworks, environmental protection, and infrastructure, we should set up the supply chain, just as mentioned by Mr. Lian, talking about the investment. For the northeastern part of China and the other areas where we don't have the permitting conditions yet, we should accelerate our progress and try to make an early layout. Fourth, increase the management of the capital so that we can avoid as much as possible the risks. For the earmarked bonds, we should make sure that they are applied in those public benefits projects and make sure that no one is abusing the local government's bonds. Those are the requirements, and we should make sure that they are respected fully. Talking about the loosening up of the control on the size of the local government bonds, today we have increased the amount of the local government's issue of their bonds. That doesn't mean that we are loosening up the control on the local government. The government should issue the loan in a legal way and also in a well-managed manner. First of all, we should strengthen the limit on the debt ceiling of the local government and also strengthen the supervision of the local governments. The above-mentioned measures could serve as a proof. Second, it is not allowed for the government in the locales to raise the debts in an illegal way. And third, we should strengthen and standardize the management on the newly added earmarked debt ceilings for the local government. And fourth, we should make it public the information concerning the newly added local government's debt. For the management, it should be standardized. For the risks, we should pay a lot of attention to that, and we should make sure that all the information related to those local debt should be always public and transparent. Next question, please. Thank you. For the Central Economic Work Conference, it is said that we should solve the problems for the small and micro-sized enterprises to get the loans. As to the transmission mechanism of the loans and also to help those small and micro-sized enterprises, what are your considerations? Thank you for your question. Actually, I have already mentioned some measures to benefit the small and micro-sized enterprises during my opening remarks. And now, here I'd like to repeat some of the information to support the small and micro enterprises from the side of the People's Bank of China. First of all, for the monetary policy support, we have lowered the threshold, enlarged the market access, and we have also the directional regulations and make sure that the small and micro-sized enterprises could have more benefits, the tangible benefits. As to the transmission mechanism, and for the bond market, last year for August and for July, we have met some pressure and challenges. And with a timely measure, we have adopted measures so that we have rebuilt the financing functions to serve the private sector and increased by 70% compared to the previous year. And now we are also proceeding with the pilot programs. We support the financial institutions to issue loans to serve the small and micro-sized enterprises. They are making real efforts. And thirdly, the synergy of multiple authorities. For example, just now another colleague has mentioned the VAT reform to benefit the small and micro-sized enterprises. Those are tangible benefits to the small and micro-sized enterprises. For the monetary policy transmission mechanism, as to the control and the supervision, we have adopted a lot of measures. But how could we identify an institution of default? We have invested the Zhejiang province and Guangdong province, in total 7 provinces and places, to see how it works. In general, the performance is satisfying, and we have registered a big increase. Currently, the service to small and micro-sized enterprises, we have 18 million institutions with approval to serve them. That is an increase of 28%. And we are serving more units of enterprises. So for the issue of the loans, the total amount has significantly increased at a faster speed than we have expected, which was at only 13% at the first time. And secondly, we have benefited more enterprises. The number of beneficiaries has also increased. And today we are giving 13.3 billion yuan of support, and all those supports come from 49 institutions in a direct or indirect manner. For the next step, we will mobilize more banks and also financial institutions who were reluctant to lend money to the small and micro-sized enterprises in the past. And second, for the commercial banks, we should urge them to make the active issue of the loans to the small and micro-sized enterprises. I will not go into details on that point. We should make sure that they could be more active in issuing the loans, and also they can make smarter decisions in issuing the loans. And we should also apply all those efforts according to the schedule in a planned manner. The NDRC is also supporting greatly the application of the measures. We hope that in the long term we can have a highly efficient application of all those measures, and we could work closely with the other authorities, including the NDRC, so that we can bring out the synergy of all those authorities and support the private sector to do a better job. By doing that, we are more resistant to the financial risks, and we can make more progress in a real economic growth. Next question, please. Thank you. I have a question for Mr. Lian. We have noticed that in the layout of the economic reform tasks, we should strengthen the role of the 4 pillars and 8 pillars. So what are the specific measures concerning the economic reform for 2019? Thank you for your question. Talking about this economic reform task, it's a big task, and we can feel the burden on our shoulder. This year, we have made the complete layout for the economic reform. For the NDRC, we will work under the new thinking of the socialism with Chinese characteristics in a new era. We will make sure that we always work under the principle with the 4 words, that is the consolidation, strengthening, improvement, and deblocking. First, the consolidation. We should consolidate the progress we made under the guideline of 3 exemptions, 1 reduction, and 1 subsidy. For the reform of the system of financing, for the infrastructure and the social services, we should let the market to play its role. And we should bring into full play the role of the private capital and social capital so that they can meet the shortage of the financial resources. And the second, we should reduce the cost of the financial support. We have made up the catalog. We have improved the pricing mechanism for the electricity and for the transport trucks. We have given more support. For the social services fee charging, we have also made an improvement. Just now, we have heard the measures to reduce the taxes and fees in order to benefit the real economic development. And third, for the exit of the market players, we should gradually phase out the zombie enterprises and make an efficient guide to the sectors where we have excessive productivity. And fourth, we should make sure that we have the transfer from the debt to the equity, improve the quality and quantity at the same time, make an orderly guide to the high-burden enterprises to reduce their debt ratio. Next, we should deepen our reform based on that strengthening efforts. We should strengthen the vitality of the small players. More specifically, there are 5 strengthenings or 5 links. First, for the SOEs, we should deepen the reform. It will be made in a mixed measure. For the 3 first groups, we are doing the reform in 50 SOEs. And we should publish the guidelines for the reform of the mixed ownerships. And for the next stage to come, we will start to apply this mixed ownership of 100 enterprises, SOEs. And second, we should increase the participation of the private enterprises so that they can participate in the application of the national policies and also the national programs. Talking about the difficulties of the private enterprises to get loans, we should publish the opinions. And third, we should start the reform of the protection of property right and ownership. For those cases concerning the property right, we should help the enterprises with damages of their property right due to the lack of credit from the government. And the fourth, we should take the measures to protect entrepreneurship. We should make carefully studies so that the enterprises and their owners could also participate in the elaboration of key national policies. And fifth, in major cities and pilot areas, we should improve the environmental conditions and also to start evaluation of the business and investment environment. And next, for the value chain and industrial production chain, we should make 3 advances. First is the market reform of the market elements. We should study on the guidelines of the market elements and make more support to the best quality elements. Second advance is that we should loosen the threshold for some key areas and also to increase the proportion of directly commercialized electricity. And for the natural gas, we should have the networks of the pipes. For the upstream, they can have a direct access to the network, and for the downstream, for the users, they can have the equal access to the network. Second, more support to the reform in order to give more beneficial conditions to the startups. For the small and medium-sized enterprises, we should give them more support. Third, for the service sector, we should deepen the reform. We should first start with the pilot programs, and we should give larger access to the market. And fourth, we should deblock the economy. There are 3 links to make. The first is to link the domestic market and the production entities. We should phase out those elements damaging an equal competition in the market. Second, we should connect the economic growth and job creation so that today there will be no longer the policy blockage for the circulation of talents and resources. And third is to link the financial resources and the real economy so that we can have a virtual cycle. Just now, my colleague has mentioned some specific measures to show us how we could use the financial institutions to serve the real economy. For example, more innovations in the bonds, and also more issue of the best quality bonds. In general, in 2019, NDRC has a huge task in serving the reforms, and we are working under the 4 letters. We will work under the guidelines of the Central Committee and try our best to make sure that reform could support the high-quality economic growth in China. We still have a lot of questions coming up, and due to the time limit, we will take another 2 questions. Next one, please. Thank you.
Mr. Ju from the Central Bank. So far, the Central Bank has resisted or has avoided cutting the benchmark interest rate, and this debt has done things like the targeted MLF and triple R cuts. What conditions would you need to see in the economy to justify a benchmark cut, a benchmark interest rate cut? And how bad would it have to be for that to happen? My second question is for the Ministry of Finance official, Mr. Xu. Please give us more details on the tax cuts for the value-added tax and the corporate tax cuts that you've announced. Do you have any estimates for what kind of economic benefits they will have, and how much will this increase GDP growth and investment growth? Thank you very much.
翻译一下。彭博社记者，首先第一个问题是想提给央行的朱行长。那么央行最近一直在避免降低基准利率，而是使用了 TMLF 等一系列的措施。那么请问，在什么情况下央行会降低基准利率？第二个问题提给许部长。那么请您详细的介绍一下在增值税和公司税方面的减税措施。那么这些措施将会给公司带来哪些好处？将对中国的经济 GDP 增长以及投资增长带来哪些好处？谢谢。
Okay, thank you for your question. For the cut of the interest rate, people are attached to that. Now, with the current monetary policy and also the financial policy, we have the cut of the benchmark interest rate and the total volume policy. This shows our adaptation to the general environment and to the pricing level. This is a signal that we'd like to transmit, and then we will observe the effects of those measures. And second, for the structure, for the weak links and weak areas, we have done all types of efforts. In general, the monetary policy we have applied is playing a more and more important role in boosting up our real economy. So based on the existing policy, how could we make sure that it can play a bigger role? We are still making our studies on that. As to the VAT and corporate taxes, the detailed measures about the tax reduction, I will give you some more information. For the VAT, back to 2018, we have started already the reform on VAT. Just now, I have mentioned something about this part during my opening remarks. For some sectors, we have lowered the tax ratio for their income tax. For some sectors, they can have a tax rebate by the end of the year. For 2019, as I have mentioned before, the VAT reform would be further deepened. The VAT reform would be advanced so that we can have a tangible benefits given to the people and a real cut in the tax. As to the VAT reduction, detailed plan is still under studies. But what is for sure is that we will have the real actions, a tangible benefits given to the people. And during the two sessions, the MPC will approve the budget and also the government's work report. And during that time, there will be more detailed opinions on the policies and also more detailed measures. That is for the first aspect. Secondly, for the corporate tax, the revenue tax, income tax. Just now I have mentioned the 2019 beneficiary policies to the small and micro enterprises. Here I have mentioned for the small and micro enterprises, for their income tax. We have loosened up the criteria for the identification of these type of enterprises. As to those small and micro-sized enterprises, they can have a cut of 50% or 25%. It depends on the detailed conditions. If their taxable income is under 1 million yuan, then the tax rate is only 5%. That's much lower than the standard. For the taxable income between 1 to 3 million yuan, these kind of enterprises will only pay at a rate of 10%. It's also lower than the standard interest rate. It's 15 percentage points lower than the standard. The major cuts will go to the small and micro-sized enterprises. As I have mentioned, to identify the small and micro-sized enterprises, they represent 95% of the total number of enterprises in China. All those tax cut messages and information will benefit a lot those enterprises, whether it's to the side of VAT or to the corporate taxes. And it can also help to boost their development in the future. Last question, please. Last year, by July, the People's Bank of China has approved a cut of benchmark interest rate to favor the debt to equity action. And what will be the 2019 measures? The debt to equity is also an important measure that we are going to take this year. The target of this action would be the players in difficulty, especially those enterprises with a very heavy burden of the loans, of the debt. After the 15th of July of 2018, we have received 500 billion RMB to support this action. Last year, we have made a very satisfying progress. For the Construction Bank, for the Agricultural Bank of China, they have collaborated also with us in this kind of action. Some enterprises, thanks to the support, have survived and even made successful actions in this reform with the access of the financial support. At the same time, we have offered the human resources support and the technical expertise. Once again, I'd like to mention that today we have the three authorities here. We have the NDRC, the Ministry of Finance, and the People's Bank of China. We have generated a synergy which is quite good for the operation of this debt to equity action. There are 5 authorities making this action at the same time, and we have a mechanism to apply our measures. We have also set up some institutions so that we can make good conjuncture of our projects. And we are moving towards our set targets. Not only for the SOEs, we are also doing this action of debt to equity with the private sectors. We treat the SOEs and private enterprises equally. Today we have Mr. Lian with us. Could you please say something too? Just now, Mr. Zhu has briefed to you in a systematic way the actions of the debt to equity. For the NDRC, the Ministry of Finance, and also the People's Bank of China, we are working together closely to progress with the debt to equity action. This is a very important measure. You are asking about the outcomes. There are several parts of it. First of all, we have the special fund to support the debt to equity, and it's based on the market operation. The enterprises, they are fully mobilized to do this. And once they are active in actions, and also the institutions of finance, they are active. Today we have registered more than 2 trillion yuan of the amount involved in this action. And last year, while doing this market-based legal debt-to-equity action, we have encountered one problem, is that the application institutions, they do not have enough financial support. Once we could reduce the benchmark interest rate with a release of 500 billion yuan, this has mobilized these financial institutions so that the execution rate of the debt-to-equity ratio is also up. Today, more than 600 billion yuan has been applied, has been executed. This year, until now, the programs of debt-to-loan has been completed by 30%. And the third, which is also an important point, by doing this debt-to-equity, some good quality enterprises, they have integrated the resources, improved the competitiveness. For some enterprises who are in temporary difficulties after the debt-to-equity loans, they have gotten out of the blockade. There are a lot of examples to cite. Some enterprises who got rid of the difficulty after this action of debt-to-equity. And for some other enterprises who are in huge financial burdens, they have embraced a second life. So we could say that we have made significant progress in the debt-to-equity action. In 2019, we will continue to make more efforts in promoting the debt-to-equity actions. Firstly, we should make sure that the signature of the contract is legal and is fully respected. And we should make sure that there is sufficient supply of financial support to the application of the debt-to-equity, so that for those projects who have already been signed in a contract, they can have the financial support. And thirdly, we should pick some key projects and make some exemplary debt-to-equity actions. This will help some enterprises to improve their competitiveness. And for those enterprises who are in temporary difficulty, we should help them to go into this debt-to-equity action so they can get rid of the difficulty as soon as possible. And then we should invite more private enterprises to get into this debt-to-equity actions. They are more mobilized than ever now to participate in the action. We should accelerate the phasing out of the zombie enterprises, and we should work with relevant authorities to get a synergy out of our actions, and also to consolidate the results yielded with the policies of the 3 exemptions, 1 reduction, and 1 subsidy. Thank you. Do you have any other information to add up? If no, that is the end of today's press conference. Thank you for your attention.